war that's fundamentally none of the US's business?
Well, certainly at first glance, what Vance said recently appears to be quite different from his earlier comments during this crisis, including one he made in a call with Prime Minister Modi, in which he said the U.S. would provide all assistance to India and in the joint fight against terrorism. This suggests that he's saying that there could be limits in terms of what the U.S. would do. But I actually don't. I think that there's consistency here. He essentially said that the U.S. wants to see de-escalation, and that has been the main message from this administration since that horrific attack in Kashmir on April 22nd. So I think that perhaps what Vance was trying to do was to limit expectations. Maybe he was trying to say that the U.S. could not guarantee that it would be in a position to help bring an end to this crisis, but that it wants to be a part of efforts to seek de-escalation. And finally, I think that Vance was also articulating a core principle of the Trump administration's foreign policy, and that's that it does not want to get dragged into other countries' wars. It doesn't want to be involved in wars, and it really wants to have less of a footprint, less of a global footprint than has been the norm for U.S. Administrations.
Indeed, and some saying that Vance, they're appealing to his MAGA base as well, take care of America first. Mr. Narasimhan, let's look at the latest US State Department's press release. It said both Pakistan and India need to de-escalate. On the surface, it seems like a very firm statement to both countries, India and Pakistan. But if you read the last line in its statement about Pakistan, it says that the US reiterates for Pakistan to take concrete steps to end the support for terrorist groups. Is this a clearer sign, a signal, do you think, that Washington is calling out Pakistan once again on terror?
Absolutely. I think it's a well-known fact. Even the previous Trump administration, as you have mentioned earlier, had called out Pakistan during an earlier incident in 2019 in Pulwama. So similar one, I think I can see that similar reaction here from the State Department on this. I think Pakistan has been called out to reduce the support, to stop that support to terrorism. That is the basic premise on which we are also basing our reactions. We are saying we are not wanting to escalate. The escalation is actually depending on Pakistan, and our interactions with in this particular issue will continue based on the support from Pakistan being stopped for terrorism and terrorist activities from Pakistan soil. That is the way I see it. I think it is a clear calling out by the State Department of Pakistan to stop supporting terrorism.
Well, Mr. Kumar, what leverage behind the scenes does the US really have to help de-escalate? The US is close to India and has, of course, historic ties with Pakistan. What's the carrot and stick approach that we might expect in the coming days?
Well, I mean, I would argue that the U.S. May not have as much leverage as some other potential mediators might, such as countries in the Arab Gulf like Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Qatar, which have very strong relations with both India and Pakistan and supply both countries with energy and other products, which I think gives them some leverage that the U.S. Does not have, even though the U.S. certainly is a key supplier of various products to India and Pakistan as well. But I think that the idea with the U.S. is that there's a history, a past precedent, as was noted in your report earlier, mediating to seek de-escalation during these crises, including in 2019, when the first Trump administration was in power. And I think the idea is that this is the U.S., a superpower that has that level of gravitas and can bring something to the table. But again, and maybe Vance was trying to set these expectations, there might be limits to the amount of influence that the Americans might have, particularly in a case like now when you have a very particularly serious crisis where neither side, India or Pakistan, might be receptive, at least at this point, to outside mediation.
Okay. Mr. Narasimhan, very quickly, we just have about 15 or 20 seconds here. Do you agree with that notion there that the US doesn't have as much leverage now as it did before?
I may not agree with that argument. I think US has got the same kind of influence on both India and Pakistan. The thing that Mr. Kogelman mentioned about the West Asian countries having a say, You find Iran having a visit to Pakistan and then to India. You also see Saudi Arabian foreign minister to Pakistan and back to India. So I think that effort is already on. I think that combined with what influence US has got, I think will have a good amount of influence on both the countries.
Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, there with very interesting and sometimes different perspectives. Appreciate your time here on Washington Watch. Let's get to other news now. Behind the headlines of a trade deal which US President Trump has positioned as a big win. It was announced in the Oval Office with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer patched in on speakerphone. The deal involves Britain dropping its tariffs on US beef, ethanol, sports equipment and other products. The UK will also buy $10 billion of Boeing airplanes. In return, the UK can export 100,000 cars to the US at that lower 10% tariff rather than the current 25% rate. Separately, steel from the UK will see zero tariffs, but under the framework, British goods in general still face higher tariffs when they come to the United States. Let's get you more on this story with Ari Hawkins. He's a news reporter at Politico who covers all things trade. Ari, thank you so much for your time here. Ari, too early to perhaps spot the champagne bottle here. This is, after all, a framework of a deal. There will be weeks of negotiations going ahead, correct?
Correct. And thank you so much for having me. This is not a traditional free trade agreement, which the US typically takes at least 18 months to negotiate. Some take years or even longer. And during the first Trump administration and the Biden administration, there were some trade deals that never came to fruition. This is a broad, almost memo or framework that lays the groundwork for negotiations to go forward. It is a good signal that despite a lot of the distrust between the US and other global partners, there is still this line of communication that's open. And we did see tangible concessions on both sides. We saw tariffs decrease. However, the most major stressors on the relationship, particularly that 10% tariff that is hitting the United Kingdom, that's not going anywhere. And the countries have quite a lot of more negotiations to do.
Ari, the big question in everyone's mind really here is how did the UK manage to get in front of the queue when getting this far with the US? It was just in the last week of April, for example, the Treasury Secretary said one of the first trade deals would be with India, but instead it's the UK that takes first place. So how did that happen?
Has always had a bit of a soft spot for the United Kingdom. We saw a very conciliatory discussion between the Prime Minister and the American president when the Prime Minister was in Washington. Those talks went well. The Trump administration praised the Prime Minister's, quote, beautiful accent, and the United Kingdom doesn't have a trade deficit with the US, and that's been a consistent stressor for the US. And in some ways, this deal was easier to navigate than others. Unlike India, the UK also didn't face higher reciprocal tariffs beyond that 10% mark, meaning that this will lay the groundwork for more deals to go forward. It was among the easier ones to negotiate. And it's worth noting that even though it was an easier one to negotiate, a lot of those most contentious disputes were unable to be resolved. That's not necessarily a positive signal for negotiations, particularly with other economies like in Asia,
Right.
particularly as the Trump administration tries to peel economies away from China.
Ari, before we let you go very, very quickly here, what lessons can other countries learn from this, the likes of India, for example, for negotiations going ahead?
There's quite a few lessons to learn. One of the primary points here is that this will be a long negotiation. There will have to be concessions. There will have to be public statements that indicate that talks are going well, that the Trump administration is able to negotiate, and clear, concrete concessions that countries are able to make and make very publicly. We saw that the UK has signaled that it is ready to negotiate on a number of different disputes, but it has praised both the negotiations between the countries as well as the Trump administration and its staff's ability to get this done.
Ari Hawkins, political reporter or trade reporter at Politico, thank you very much for your time here on Washington Watch. In other news now, this week saw yet another high-stakes meeting at the White House, this time between Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and US President Donald Trump, who has spent the last few months lambasting his northern neighbor. Yet, while many were expecting another fiery showdown at the Oval Office, what we saw instead was a meeting between leaders looking at resetting ties. Disha Bakshi has these details.
We're going to be friends with Canada. Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. I love Canada.
After a resounding election victory on an anti-Trump platform, many thought that when Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney came face-to-face with US President Donald Trump, it could only result in one thing, a fiery clash. Yet President Trump, who spent months belittling Canada with his annexation threat, had a very different tone towards Washington's once close ally. President Trump played nice with the Canadian leader, softening his one hostile tone, from calling lambasting Canada to now expressing his love for America's neighbor. Canada's Mark Carney had one goal: to reiterate that Canada is not going to become the 51st US state and avoid a public fight while doing so. And he seems to have succeeded, using praise and a firm stance to push his points across.
Said that Canada should become the 51st state.
Yeah. No. Well, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango, right?
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
They have. I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, you know, they were low, and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
Despite Trump's never say never retort, the US and Canada look to be on the path of resetting ties. Over the past 2 months, the two countries have been struggling in a trade war sparked by US President Trump's tariff hikes, many of which do not comply with the North American Free Trade Agreement. Carney, like many other world leaders, hopes to quickly negotiate a bilateral trade agreement that could very well reduce the impact of American duties. This encounter comes at a crucial time and could guide other leaders manage Trump's trade demands, including Australian PM Anthony Albanese, who, much like Carney, also won polls on an anti-Trump platform. With sides pleased with the encounter, only time will tell what this means for US-Canada ties. With Disha Bakshi, Bureau Report, NDTV World.
Here's a quick wrap of some other stories from the United States.
Tensions flared at the Columbia University as dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters were arrested after they occupied part of the main library on Wednesday. The protesters forced their way into the Butler Library, leaving at least 2 security officers injured. The university president has called protesters' actions outrageous. There doesn't seem to be an end to the Trump versus Harvard fight. This as the US government announced it would block the country's oldest university from receiving any new federal research grants. The move signals a sharp escalation in Trump's campaign to remake higher education and isolate institutions that resist.
We just informed them a little while ago, and all action is stopping.
US President Donald Trump has said that Washington would stop bombing Yemen's Houthis, adding that the Iran-backed group had agreed to stop interrupting important shipping lanes in the Middle East. While the announcement did not mention the ongoing Houthi attacks on Israel, the Houthis have pledged that such strikes would continue. Well, the Americans could be faced with significant tax rate increase as Trump is coaxing lawmakers to increase rates on them. This is the government's bid to offset other cuts in his signature economic package. According to reports, the proposal calls for creating a new 39.6% tax bracket for individuals earning at least $2.5 million or couples making $5 million. Carla Hayden, the first woman and the first African American to be Librarian of Congress, has been abruptly fired by Donald Trump. This as the White House continues to evict those perceived to oppose the president and his agenda. Hayden, whose 10-year term was set to expire next year, was notified about her removal through an email late on Thursday. She had come under backlash from a conservative advocacy group that had in fact vowed to root out those standing in the way of Trump's agenda.
That's it for Washington Watch. I'm Allister D'Souza.
It's time for some tombola. Working on that flat pack. Open for fun. Been bulking up the six-pack. Open for fun.
Whatever you need to ask about cancer, Macmillan's free support line is just a call away.
Hello, Macmillan.
Whether it's money...
Am I going to lose my job?
Getting on with life.
Can I still go abroad? Get insurance?
Or just need someone to listen.
How do I tell them?
Our specialist advisors are here to help as often as you need them. Whatever you need to ask, cancer, money, life, call us now on 0808 134 1000.
As a dad, I know life's unpredictable. It's all fun and games until it's not.
You okay?
I want my kids to always be looked after. That's why I'm not putting it off anymore. And I'm protecting the life we've built.
Welcome to Smart Insurance. How can I help?
Hi, I'd like a quick quote, please.
Okay. You can choose a benefit amount up to £750,000 depending on your age. And you can personalise your policy with optional critical illness and children's cover.
Brilliant.
If you're a UK resident aged 18 to 64, you can apply with just a few health and lifestyle questions. For £250,000 of cover, the price starts at just £14.77 a month.
That's less than I thought. And could help my wife pay off the mortgage.
Just like families, not all life insurance is the same. That's why we offer the Smart Family Guarantee. We guarantee a straightforward application process, award-winning service you can trust, and cover from day one. And it's easy to arrange. You can get covered in just a matter of minutes.
That's good to know.
For even greater peace of mind, you'll also receive a 100% advance in the event of terminal illness and 10% cashback on your first year's premiums. That's the Smart Cashback.
Sounds great. I'll go ahead.
Our Smart Family Life Insurance is exclusive to us. And when you sign up, you'll get access to free health and wellbeing services. Plus, you get your choice of a £125 gift card.
Now I know my family's looked after. I just need to find them.
Protect the life you've built the smart way. To get a free life insurance quote today, call our specialist UK team on 0800 977 5752 or visit smartinsurance.co.uk.
Magic family moments deserve the perfect setting. A stylish awning from House is the ideal addition to your outdoor space. Available in a range of colours and finishes, and with the option of integrated lighting and heating, you can enjoy your outdoor space for even longer. Now that is magic. House awnings, made for life.
It's great to be helping out before my first grandchild arrives, and after having a few repairs myself, I need to make sure they'll all be protected. Which reminds me, there's more than one way to help protect my family.
Welcome to British Seniors, the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance. How can I help?
Hi, I'd like a quick quote.
You've come to the right place. We're proud to offer our seniors lifetime guarantee. With 100% of claims having been paid, we guarantee your premiums will never go up and that you'll speak to one of our specialists in the UK.
Wow, that's great to hear.
Depending on your age, your loved ones can get a cash payout up to £10,000 and the cover is in place for your whole life.
And what's the application like?
It couldn't be easier to apply. If you're a UK resident aged 50 to 80, you're guaranteed to be accepted and you can arrange everything in a matter of minutes. There are no medicals or blood tests. Prices start from just £4.52 a month for £1,000 of cover.
Wow, that money could help with funeral costs or as a gift for my grandkid. I'll do it.
As the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance, we're proud to protect thousands of families across the UK. We're rated excellent by Trustpilot and also rated platinum by FIFO. Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive a £135 gift card and free 24/7 GP advice and health services.
He's going to be named after his granddad.
Be proud to protect your loved ones with British Seniors. To get a free quote today, call our UK team on 0800 781 0770 or visit britishseniors.co.uk.
These are the initial minutes. Let's wait and see whether, these are, this is a small wave of drones or is it going to be one as large as yesterday? We'll have to wait and see. There are obviously going to be a flood of videos coming in from these three places, potentially others as well, Vishnu.
All right, so there is intense fighting taking place in some parts of Jammu and Kashmir. This is Akak fire, which has been seen over the Samba area. There are explosions as a result of interceptions taking place in Firozpur right now. There is the sound of explosions which are being heard at this stage in Jammu as well. Blackouts in Ambala, in Chandigarh and in Jammu. We've got an update from the Defense Ministry where they say that these drones, which have come in once again tonight, have been engaged. This being the case, this marks what many would consider an escalation. We'll take a break at this stage, come back to the very latest situation, which is developing now across our frontier in parts of Punjab and certainly in the Jammu area. Also, I should mention extensive artillery firing, which has broken out.
Hello everyone, this is The Big Fight and I'm Maria Shakil. On the intervening night of Thursday and Friday, in fact it is continuing even today, the Pakistani military